Good evening and welcome to Something to Talk About. Of course, we're at King's Restaurant tonight, and my guest is probably one of the most interesting people on Guam. You just don't know it yet, but you're going to find out in a couple of minutes. His name is Jim Healy. He's a longtime teacher at Simon Sanchez High School. Just the commute alone to get to school every day is one thing, but you got to hear what he teaches your kids. Jim Healy is our guest tonight on Something to Talk About. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us tonight on Something to Talk About. We're at King's Restaurant, and of course we have eaten everything on the menu, which is, explains the table in such disarray. It was a feeding frenzy here a minute ago, and more food is on the way because Jim Healy, my friend from a long time. I think,
very long. 18 years.
Has it been 18 years? You look great.
So do you.
See? We have been friends for a long time, and I just find his life to be really fascinating. He's a teacher at Simon Sanchez High School. You guys are getting new digs. Did you hear that? $100 million RFP went out?
Yes, but I've been on Guam a long time, so I'm going to wait for the protest to end and all of that. I'm sure
You'll
it'll
wait
go
until
there
they dig the first...
till the lawyers are done, and yeah.
And then you'll get excited?
Yeah.
Because you were there, how long have you been at Simon Sanchez?
18 years. Yes.
18 years. And
in the bunker.
Yeah, in the bunker. He doesn't come out often, but he teaches. I mean, you're an intense history teacher. Would you say that?
Yes, very. Yeah, I'm very intense, but I'm also very laid back. It throws the kids for a loop a lot.
But that's good, though. Don't kids need to be thrown for a loop?
Well, I hope so.
I got to ask you, because you've been teaching 18 years of classes, you know, you've seen all these kids come out of there. When they come back around and they see you after all was said and done, and they come back into their normalcy, what are their comments? I mean, what do they say to you? In fact, I know that we have a couple of them, but what?
When I see kids that I've had in the past, they'll mention something. Are you still teaching about Buffalo Soldiers? You know, there's just these random things that stood out for them, you know, one aspect. Are you still telling the story about, you know, when you scared your roommate, you know, when he came home drunk, you know.
Yeah.
They remember the most random things, but they remember things, and that's awesome.
But you have a different sort of method to capture their attention than probably most teachers do. But you're also teaching a really cool course. If you were teaching math, would it be
I think
different?
I could do the same. No, I think
you could
I'm
still
weird.
have relatable.
I'm weird.
You're weird enough.
I'm ADD. And yeah, no, the way I teach is I just amuse myself, and there happens to be 30 other teenagers in the room. I mean, I love what I do. I love the topics, and yeah, it's just.
But it's not a character you're playing, or do you? Is it a little bit of that?
No, I do. I perform. I'm performing. I mean, that's.
Yeah.
You know, I do on certain days. I do 3 shows a day. That's really what it is in my mind.
And they're sold out.
Yeah.
Simon Sanchez is
captive audience.
Yeah.
Gotta love them.
Yeah, under duress. No, but I mean, it's a high school, and these, you know, it just seems like it's much more difficult. And over the years, in the past 18 years, has it become much more difficult to teach?
No.
Wow.
It hasn't. Again, I was talking to you about this earlier. I mean, I love what I do, and each year I have to figure out a way to make a connection with the kids. The older I get, the further that connection goes. I loved my young teachers, and I'm sure kids love young teachers, but I got to get them to love an old guy. And that means, you know, doing whatever it is I have to do. And so I'm very unorthodox, and I make sure I'm unique. And
I agree.
That works.
I mean, if they can come back and remember you for some antic or something that,
yes.
And you go, maybe it didn't. Does it go? Do you ever stop and go, yeah, that was me. I did say that after all.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Again, I get going. It's like someone asking you, you know, do you remember what you said in your 4-hour radio program? I mean,
yeah, never.
You can't keep track of all those comments. Yeah, I may have said that.
Yeah. But it sounds like something I would say.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's what makes it eventful. You were telling me that when you teach your history classes, because history is history, right? History is history, and you can't change anything about how you teach. I mean, you can't change anything about history necessarily, but you know what I mean by that?
You can change the perspective from how it's taught. I don't use textbooks. I do not use the textbooks that are provided. They're basically a rich white man's version of history, and rah rah America, and we're great, and we've heard that story. Now I like to, and I'm teaching on Guam. I'm the minority here, the white guy, and I'm looking for topics that are going to affect and that the kids can relate to here. And to me, that's the African American experience in U.S. history, and it's ignored quite a bit in U.S. history textbooks even now. But if they can understand how African Americans, what their story was, the obstacles they overcame, because every brown kid on this island,
Hey, Danielle.
and every woman on this island is a minority.
Right. Thanks, babe.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
if I can teach the African American story and show them the obstacles that they overcame to be treated equally, and those obstacles are still being leapt over as we speak, and it's history they haven't heard. They've heard the white history before, and all of a sudden they get to high school and it's this, we're not using textbooks and we're not taking tests or quizzes, and here's African American history for half a year. They're like, whoa.
Well, and I understand the significance. I get that. I totally get that. It's a whole different perspective of history. And yeah, we live in a community where everybody's got some kind of plight, and it could be related to their ethnicity. But the problem is, one of the problems is that, like you said, there's still a lot of unresolved stuff. Institutionalized racism, I think is what you call it.
Yes.
In America and against blacks, and every day that we see it, the riots that we've been watching, a lot of the attention on that. Here's the latest, Miss Rachel. I keep forgetting her, Dolezal. The blackish-ish girl at NAACP.
Yeah.
Did you?
That was a weird one.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
That's a weird one.
What was your take on that when you first heard that?
You're just not ready for that one,
Yeah.
I don't know, when I saw that, I just thought of the time there was a African American law enforcement officer who got in with the Klan, did undercover work with the Klan. I mean, he wasn't under a white hood, out there, but he was making contacts in the clans and did all of this. And again, it's just kind of these things you're not expecting,
Yeah.
the white girl to pawn off that she's black to be.
But was she doing a bad thing, do you think? Do you think that she was doing a bad thing in the end, or was the deceit too much to see the good stuff that she was trying to do?
I don't have a place to judge that. I mean, I was just starting to read up on what her accomplishments were, and you were talking about it this morning, talking about Al Sharpton.
Yeah.
I mean, there's way more pressing issues within the civil rights community today than to be hung up on this, She's stepping down and whatever. Fine, we move on. But yeah, it just seems kind of...
It's just too odd. It's too weird. Nothing that you're going to teach in class.
No.
So what do you teach in class? What's relatable to a Chuukese kid or a Palauan kid or a Chamorro kid?
Well, and that's exactly it. The thing that kids... The reason they don't like history so much is that we don't then turn around and relate it to today and to their situation. Just teaching black history and telling, fine, it's interesting, it's rich, but there still has to be some connections, because at the end of the day, the kid goes, well, I'm not black, and we don't have many black people on Guam. And so I have to always bring it back to say, okay, well, do we have racial issues here? Oh, yeah, we all know it. But again, unless you're African American, you don't see the day-to-day institutional racism that they face. Mm-hmm. And unless you're Chuukese, you don't see the day-to-day institutional racism that they see and feel here on Guam. So it's important. It's a really important parallel.
So if the Chuukese or the Palauans or migrants from the FSM, for example, are relatable to the blacks, then what are the Chamorros? Are we the big white bad white man, or what are we?
No, and you know what's nice about teaching that story, or how I present history, is that there aren't the divisions in my classroom. The Chamorros, the Chuukese, the Koreans, the one or two Howleys. It just becomes this kind of like, because I'm white, but I really diss the white race in teaching history because I want to teach this other side. so they see me as a facilitator of all brown, of all the discriminated, women, handicapped, and that, you know, and so I don't know. I don't have any conflicts in my class.
Would you have been? Would you be teaching this same way if you were teaching on the mainland?
Good question. No,
Like in New York, probably not.
probably not. Probably not. I want to do more than just teach history and have kids learn facts and do well on a test. I want them to be able to be better people, to be a kinder human. We're all guilty of it. I'm so guilty of it. You cut me off, someone cuts me off when I'm driving, my first thing is to look at them racially and say something. That's
Right.
what pops into my head. You know, you military idiot, you this, you that.
Yeah.
And I step back and like, you know, it's still there. We all have to fight it and understand it.
So you mean everybody is guilty of persecuting the other race that is the other race?
I think so.
The institutionalized racism that there is. We all are guilty of it, including people who are brown.
And one example that I use early on, and I told you about this before, is I have some articles. I do current events with my students, and they're local current events. And we had a case where there was a rape, a gang rape, and it was involving, I don't know how many Chukis girls, but the perpetrators were male, were Chukis also.
There were two Chukis girls, yeah.
And in the newspaper, we had two newspapers. I'm just going to say one newspaper made no mention of where anybody was from. The other newspaper couldn't put it out there enough that suspect number one originally from Chuk. This person originally from, they kept throwing out this person's from Chuk. And to me, you know, I didn't like that. So made copies of both articles and I gave them out to the kids. I said, read the articles. Tell me, what do you think? What's wrong? The Chukis kids all got it immediately. They just immediately. A lot of the Chamorros, Filipinos, other people didn't see what's wrong.
They knew they were being singled out.
That's the institution, you know.
Well, I'm going to ask you then. We're going to take a break real quick. You can bite into that beautiful bacon cheeseburger. But I want to ask you how they respond because you might find that maybe some of them don't say anything at all, that they just sort of let it fly because they don't want to cause any trouble or cause attention to themselves. That's going to be one of the long-winded questions I'll have. Jim Healy is our guest. We'll be right back. Good evening. Welcome back. King's Restaurant, something to talk about. My buddy, teacher, Jim Healy. I mean, I have nothing else to call you. This dude.
Guy extraordinaire. Someone we found.
So we're talking about teaching high school students. We're talking about racism, how it exists on Guam. And I asked you the question about, do kids, when they recognize that they are being discriminated against, when they recognize prejudice, does the culture, the island way, you know, tend to make us be humble about it and just shut up and not say anything?
Yes, it does.
That must drive you nuts.
It does, because I'm the New York way.
Yeah.
Something happens, you complain about it, and you complain until you make other people miserable, and then somebody does something about it. And if you have to be brash and use harsh language, then that's what you do. You know, that's where I'm from. But I wanted to mention, the whole thing with this is obviously to create dialogue, you know, to let the Chamorros, let the Filipinos know that this institutional racism goes on within this group. And once they understand that, their eyes open up and they can start to see it and everything changes. When I start this lesson, first thing I do is I list all of the ethnicities on the board. And I tell, that are here on Guam. And I tell, like the top, whatever we do, Chamorro, Filipino, Chukis, Yapis, Kosarayan, Palauan, Pohnpeian, Korean, Japanese, Haole. Chinese, yep. And I ask them to list which group they think faces the most discrimination here on Guam. And most of my kids in every classroom, the majority of my students are Filipino, and then probably Chamorro, and then FSM, and then others. And every one of the Chukis puts Chukis, or the Filipinos, the Chamorros, they put all kinds of different things. Some put Chukis, some will put, black, some will put how Jap themselves.
But all the Chukis pick Chukis.
Yep.
So they feel it in the community.
They feel it, and they know it, and they know the obstacles that they're up against, and this opens dialogue within the class.
So what do they say?
Well, and that's the key, that they feel like they're not wanted, but you cannot blame them for the doors open to come here to have a better life. Even if that better life is a Quest card and Gura housing, it's still a better life. My ancestors did that. They weren't wanted in New York. They have to understand what blacks went through, understand what every immigrant group went through, and what the hostile natives do, whether it's overt, the KKK, or it's the institutionalized racism. But the point is, letting the Filipinos know and the Chamorros know, the kids in my class, because they don't see the racism. They don't understand the obstacles that immigrants go through to start a better life somewhere.
And the thing is that you can't, what's really interesting is that you can't lump the Black America into people who just eventually will let it go, because they eventually become accepted. Italian Americans, Jewish Americans, Chinese, Japanese Americans. They all found a way. They all found their niche. They all found a way to survive. Black America continues to be, a thorn, or not continue. They are suffering, on a daily basis. And I'm not sure. Somebody said to me that they'd never seen racism. Another teacher, actually, a public school teacher, stopped me in the store the other day, and she said, "I don't think America has seen racism as bad as we have since President Obama was elected into office." I mean, I can recall a period in time where Black America had a worse time than they do now. But she seems to think there's been more of a concentration on something that we normally didn't see, because the star player is now on center stage.
I don't know if I agree with that.
I had a hard time wrapping my mind around that one, but.
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all.
But there is a lot more black and white problems in America and concentration on it than there ever has been, and there's a lot more Chukis relationship problems in Guam than there ever has been, and they've been here for a long time.
With the numbers, well, again, when I first got here, I had very few Chukis students in our school. Now, I mean, the numbers, what I've seen over 18 years, it's very, very different. So the more immigrants that come into a place, the greater the reaction is going to be, and generally it's going to be negative, no matter what the ethnic group is.
Right.
I remember growing up in the 70s, and Guam knew it too, with the Vietnamese influx. This was a transitioning point. We had Vietnamese coming to our town in New York, and even though everybody knew the plight and felt for them, it was still there was a little
tension.
What are you doing? Go somewhere else. And that's, understanding the plight of what immigrants go through. But the black experience is different. They didn't immigrate here. They were forcibly brought here. You think of the immigrants that do come to the United States or to Guam, the work ethic is pretty hard. A lot of the Chukis will take the jobs that no one else is willing to do, and they will work hard, and they do a great job. But in the same token, the more of them come over, that's all people see.
Yeah.
So it's to me, it opens dialogue, though. The black experience opens up the dialogue for us to talk about our local issues with racism, and that's great.
That is also a pretty sizable community, Black Chamorros.
I do.
Black. There is a very healthy, vibrant Black Chamorro community. Children who came from either a black father or black mother married into into Chamorro culture and Chamorro race, and
I've had a
and
lot of those
settled
students.
here. Yeah,
I've had a
settled.
lot of those students,
And
and they are
they-
just extremely happy when they end up in my class and they're learning
Yeah.
half of their history.
And some of them, which is really interesting, is that some of them that I know don't even realize that they have a whole nother world that is outside of Guam, where half of them is off limits, or half of them is unaccepted. You know what I mean? It's not the same thing living in Guam being black and living in the mainland being black.
Absolutely.
Yeah, much
Absolutely.
different. So you're going to continue to teach at Simon Sanchez? I mean, there's nothing there.
I love it there.
You know, I was laughing at you. I'm always laughing at you, but I was laughing at you particularly because you drive. What's weird is you drive from Arizo. You must have to love like the campus or something, because you could pretty much work in Southern High if you wanted to, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
But you've never tried to transfer out of that school,
No.
and you
I
take
actually
that commute
haven't-
every day.
Yeah. The military school actually recruited me. I became a swim coach for their Navy team, Exxon years ago.
Yeah.
And they actually, my mother still will kill me for this, wanted me to go teach. And I said no. I love Sanchez. I was hired there. And, some corny, I know it doesn't exist anymore, but I kind of do believe in loyalty, even to a public institution. And I'm sure it sounds stupid, but Lou St. Nicholas is on the school board now. Originally it was Lou Boyd when she hired me. And I love that lady. She's a great woman, great teacher, great friend. And
So you
yeah,
stayed.
I stayed.
Even after she was
And
long
after
gone.
she left, then I just had seniority, and I can almost literally get away with, I won't say murder,
No, just-
kidnapping.
No, no. Oh, ha ha. That's your high school teacher.
Yeah.
No, but a lot of kids remember you. Our Roselle Romanis.
Yes.
There was a photo. She's going to kill me. Should we?
Yes.
Let's do it. And I'm going to tell her I did it. Oh, this is Roselle Romanis from the Pacific News Center. Oh, I got that. You show and tell. Roselle Romanis was this. What year was that? Do you you obviously remember?
I remember her,
She's
yeah.
like, look at her dressed up as Rosie the Riveter. Look at that.
What year was that? I don't know.
It
You'd
all-
have to
it-
ask
It all
Roselle.
me.
Roselle, do you remember?
It all bleeds in. Well, you've got thousands of students that you have taught over the years, and they probably all definitely have an experience for you.
100 and, just say average, 120 students a year times 18.
Wow.
I'm afraid to go to the mall.
That's a lot of influence over your kids. Well, you're like we don't have a retainer fee for you, but I've consulted with you every once in a while if I can get you in between classes. It's been a long time since I have.
I know.
But I'm going to tap your brain more often. I hope
Please
you don't
do.
mind.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
I love this.
He does love this. I'm going to tell you, you eat, breathe, and live this whole
whole
teacher
Guam
thing.
scene.
The whole
The whole
Guam,
Guam
thing.
scene.
You're not leaving at all,
No.
ever. Okay,
No.
he's here for good. Good luck with that.
Yeah. Try and get rid of me.
Yeah, I dare you. Thanks a lot, Jim. Appreciate it.
Thank
my
you,
friend.
Patty.
Thank you for joining us tonight. We'll see you on the radio. Have a great evening.